Hey, World Builders! Welcome back to Shoutout Saturday, where I read your lore. If you want to hear your own writing read aloud here, come submit some for the daily prompt in the Discord and tag it for Shoutout Saturday. Now let's read some lore. This is Shoutout Saturday number 13, and we're going to start with day number 158, where the prompt was, are there any franchises in your world? If no, why not? If yes, describe one that is well known. Predwin the Great starts with Calico Arms. Calico Arms is a Nyan-run company stationed in Havenhold that is almost solely responsible for the distribution of weapons in Grala. Calico Arms have been around for a long time, around 120 years, making all sorts of revised, engineered weapons from the Far Empire. Possibly their most famous weapon, the Calico Arms Purge Gun, is essentially a gargantuan Gatling gun with an immense fire rate of 25,000 rounds per minute, the fastest of any firearm in turmoil. The employees of Calico Arms are well known for their sunny disposition despite the nature of their work. For day 159, we have the prompt, is there a specific weapon that has grown very popular throughout your world? This comes from Predwin the Great. Predwin the Great writes, Blasbruke Heavy Anti-Dragon Rifle. The Blasbruke Halan for snipe gun is a very popular line of low-production heavy rifles made in the forward city of Grith Go Dako Nuth Dindok. Blasbruke were once used to decimate the local dragon population of Kamar. Their ability to knock adult dragons out of the sky in a single round, if placed properly, was well renowned within Caldatha, to the point that so many people believed in the power of the rifle so much that the firepower was artificially increased by the power of the Faith Font. Nowadays, the Blazbruka is a rare sight on the battlefield, used to annihilate powerful opponents like ogres, medial demons, or arc cultists. The Blazbruka has time and time again proven to be an effective tool of war in the Kamar fronts and has earned a reputable degree of fame, making it immensely popular despite its low count compared to other rifles. For day 160, the prompt was, what is the reason or backstory behind why a specific law is in place in your world? And this comes from Nugget in the Discord. Bruin the Great writes, the right to hate. Remexia has a history full of conflict, arguably more than any other faction. It is a broken country that stands with the help of one word, hate. To hate is to be pure, to be righteous, to be correct. Remexia, over time, has brainwashed its citizens into hating any other lineage. Elves, dwarves, lizard folk, all of them are to be hated. This law, if broken, is punishable by forced time and the rehallowed legions, where the offender must fight for their right to re-enter Remexian society. Nugget writes the banning of necromancy. I looked out over the sea of corpses that covered the streets. It all happened so quickly. A figure comes up to me, the first other person I've seen in days now. He had platinum blonde hair, blue, almost gray eyes, a hooked nose, and a tired expression. He was dressed in traveler's clothes, adorned with a purple jeweled brooch, and held onto a walking stick in his right hand. Are you going anywhere, stranger? He asked. Where is there to go? Meh, there's a temple south of here people are gathering at. My wife is there already. They say my skills may be needed. People? Yes, if you'd like to come with me, I'm sure you'd be welcome. He looked around at the same gruesome scene I was before he showed up. After all, where else is there to go? I didn't even get your name. Lockhart. Lockhart and I walked for hours, the sun burning at the back of my neck and blood seeping into my shoes as we traveled. We didn't talk much, but of the words exchanged I learned that he was a mage, but didn't particularly like his skill set. He had a wife and a daughter on the way, but they were separated when the world fell apart. He would cough periodically, and I could swear I saw traces of blood lingering on his lips a few times, but something told me I was better off not asking. We made our way deeper into the mountains, and it was only then that Lockhart pulled out a map. He looked at it intently, still quietly coughing as he scanned around for something. Eventually he found it, an entrance to underground corridors or the catacombs, Lockhart said with a soft triumph. He summoned a ball of light with his offhand and began descending the stairs, beckoning me to join him. The catacombs were a maze. Even with Lockhart's map, I can't say how long we spent down there, now that the sun could no longer be used to track time. By the time we emerged, it was night, but the people we found were far more restful. Everyone was working on something, mostly construction it seemed. People were building over top of the temple Lockhart and I had spent so much time trying to reach. I couldn't have been looking around for long, but by the time I looked beside me, Lockhart was gone. I was quickly put to work myself by a woman in religious attire, and I didn't see Lockhart again until morning. It had been well over 24 hours since I last slept, and I barely had any food that night. With the golden light of dawn, I realized that a few of the workers beside me were dead. Well, I'm sure, given circumstances, I don't look the best either, but these were different. Their eyes were too sunken and had no shine. Plenty still had their fatal wounds oozing blood onto the ground. I looked around to see if anyone else noticed, where I saw Lockhart standing within the crowd, his eyes closed in concentration, muttering as he cast. As I watched him, it became clear what he was doing. He was the one reanimating the dead to help build. Lockhart, I yelled. There you are. I've been looking for you. Lockhart's eyes opened as he turned to look at me. Ah, you again, he said. You're a necromancer? Lockhart lurched, suddenly, coughing heavily as blood spilled from his mouth. Unfortunately, he croaked, necromancy is the only school of magic that withers away at the host like this. In order to control the dead, you become something like it. That is the trade-off of the one that decays. The one that decays, don't you mean? Don't say its name. After everything we've gone through, do you really want their attention now? No. Good. Lockhart doubled over in pain, visibly wincing before steadying himself. We need to work quickly, and the dead need to be cleared from the streets. It's a necessity right now, and the church has promised me a noble title for my work. But rest assured, the ban of necromancy will be the first law I bring up. Lockhart's health got worse as the weeks went on. What started as him simply coughing up blood evolved into black ichor in large quantities. His extremities blackened as if being overtaken by mold, and his veins grew more visible and dark. It was clear to anyone keeping tabs on him that he wasn't doing well and was only getting worse. I heard the catacombs were getting sealed, I asked the next time I saw Lockhart. Well, yes, after I move all of the dead down there, I will be cutting off access, he said. That's how we got here. How would we leave? I don't see how that matters. There's nothing out there. I just have a bad feeling. The look on Lockhart's face was that sympathy. I see. I get where you're coming from. The smell of petrichor is in the air. A storm is on the horizon. It's just passing rain, isn't it? Maybe. One can hope. But one also brings to mind Noah. Personally, I don't think the apocalypse is over yet, and I don't trust the cathedral as the ark. What happens if it doesn't? My bloodline was tainted by the decade long ago. I do not intend for anyone in my family to learn my craft, but should things get dire, I will provide something to be buried with me. Would that give you solace? You really think you're going to die? We all do eventually, but me especially. Lockhart grew solemn as he spoke. How many necromancers do you know other than me? How many are older than I? I believe you're the first. Because they die young. I'm only 22, and I doubt I'll see 23. You borrow the decade's magic, and it lures you to its eternal garden all the sooner. And that's why you want it outlawed. Precisely. There was a stiff silence as he let me internalize what he was saying. We've spoken long enough. I have more I need to get done. And with that he walked away. As I felt the first drops of rain fall from the heavens onto my face, the catacombs were sealed a few days later, and within the month Lockhart was dead. I'm still thinking about his words. I don't think the apocalypse is over yet. The rain hasn't stopped. Great bit of prose and fun narrative writing from Nugget. I enjoyed reading this a lot, giving me a little more context. So this is like some historical piece that you've written for the world. Seems pretty cool. I like this a lot. For day 161, the prompt was, what's a recently discovered slash invented technology in your world? Who was the person to discover slash invent it? And this was by MycoMan. Brodwin the Great writes, Sapper drives. A sapper drive is a large, 7-foot tall pillar of mortal steel with various unspecified tech bits beneath its frame. Sapper drives are a preemptive development made, by session, 6 days ago, by one Gideon Rotbrand, a Nyan entrepreneur who received the schematics in a dream. In other words, Ophiax granted him the knowledge without ask of payment. Sapper drives can be used to drastically lower ambient mana levels, which in war can be used to limit the enemies of Kamara's arcane capabilities. While they haven't been fully deployed yet, one was used in close proximity to a captured Scry Sniper for several hours. By the end of the test, the Scry Sniper had lost all meta powers and became a normal person, other than the fanatic belief in a corpse god. Deployment status uncertain. One does not needs and will continue to research possible civilian applications. We're getting some interesting developments in Predwin's lore, it sounds like. I like this idea here. You've got something works like a null sort of in Warhammer, kind of, right? Aren't there blanks or nulls or something? People who nullify the warp around them. This is giving me that vibe. I like this idea a lot. Nugget writes Victor's Watch, and this is a time traveler on the immortal entry. When Victor was a small child, he was tinkering with something on a bench waiting for his father. An old man he didn't even notice was there, began talking about the thrill of invention and how a dear friend of his was an inventor, but he was unfortunately gone now. Seeing potential in Victor, the man gave him a silver pocket watch containing the soul of the god Time. He said it was special, and that his friend would have wanted him to have it. When Victor asked what it was, the man simply laughed and said, I think any good inventor should enjoy the process of finding that out for themselves. And before Victor could ask anything else, the man was gone. Much like any exposed to a shard of a god's soul, Time's magic began bleeding out and affecting Victor in strange ways. He saw glimpses of the past and future, and was fascinated by the concept of time. He never lost his wonder of invention, and eventually created blueprints to turn his watch into the time machine, unknowingly using Time's soul to power it. Despite the careful planning of it, Victor actually had to put it together under a lot of pressure and haste. The first test didn't go well. He was covered in burns and lacerations upon getting spit back out of the fabric of reality millennia ago, and would have likely died if the show hadn't caught the attention of Emrys Aurelius, who helped cure his wounds. While he managed to stabilize it eventually, it's constantly prone to breaking and malfunctioning, leaving him stranded in certain time periods or sending him to completely random ones. While he was always curious, Victor never actually found out who the old man that gave him the watch was. At least, not until he was sitting on a bench in his old age, in a familiar scene, giving his prized watch to a promising young child who reminded him, a bit too closely, of himself. Cool, classic time travel situation. We have a cyclic story where the origins of a character are that character's story's end. MycoMan writes, a fair trade, right? Arcane focuses are rather interesting as an invention. To simplify their purpose, they let one focus their magic to lessen the materials required for spellcasting. A focus also can, at times, hold religious purpose, sentimental value, or have other select properties. It's interesting to see how vast these can be. In the realm Aquis, turtles will give themselves special tattoos made using an enchanted ink. They then use these tattoos as a limited time spellcasting focus. Depending on the power of spells and size of the tattoos, these can last anywhere from a few uses to a few years. Recently, I also heard rumor of a group in Scalara attempting to revolutionize arcane focuses. Apparently, they're trying to find a way to let the focus hold extra arcana within it, to let the person magically tied to the focus cast more spells before they need rest. A truly innovating idea. For day 162, the prompt was, what monsters, beasts, or other creatures can be found in your world? What do people think of them? And this prompt came from Eris, in the Discord and on TikTok. Roman the Great writes of monsters and men. Turmoil is chock full of all manner of monstrosities, Fulzanax, void suns, light stricken. These creatures have drastically shaped the world and its denizens to the point of entire cultures, e.g., the Kartoff, being forced to take monsters into account in everyday life. One monster, and the people affected by it, that we will discuss today, are the mighty stags. Stags are creatures that form in regions of immense cold. These 15 to 20-foot tall bipedal humanoid monsters that resemble a lanky man with a deer skull for a head are typically most common in Rayonis Gao, where the temperature can be as low as -23 degrees Fahrenheit or -30.5 degrees Celsius. In these temperatures, stags can manifest themselves by possessing the frozen carcasses of animals. If given multiple choices, Rayonian scientists have discovered that stags will prefer possessing the carcasses of corvids, ravens and crows, wolves, vultures, and foxes, over other carcasses like bears, deer, elk, or other winter animals. If given the opportunity to possess a mortal, for example, an executed convict, stags will never possess a mortal carcass unless it is the only visible option to the stag's word. A word is weird, so it's a topic for another day. All this research has been put into stags and how they function to better protect the public of Rayonisgau from the threat these creatures pose. Stags have been a pain in the Rayonians' backside for as long as they've lived in the northern wastes of Kamar. Stags are resistant to most small and medium calibers and can even shrug off a tank round or two before they go down. Although they are rare, every citizen of Rayonisgau is well aware of the danger that stags pose to their way of life. Despite the problems they cause, the Rayonians respect the stags, seeing them as nature spirits that are to be revered and treated well. Stags are rarely ever killed by Rayonians, instead, more often appeased with sacrifice, such as cattle being brought to their woods or convicts being sent into their lairs covered in ruins made of burning hot wax. These gifts have greatly reduced the aggression of the stags. Whether or not this is part of a stag's base nature, or the effects of the power of faith changing how the monsters behave, is unknown. Regardless, Raonius Gau is fond of their free security system against newcomers that bring war to their lands. I like this. I feel like this is almost written like something out of The Witcher a little bit, like a creature entry in the bestiary there. I dig this a little bit. I don't think I'm 100% accurate in that connection, but it's giving Witcher vibes in a really cool way. Especially it being sort of surrounded by a lot of mysterious folklore aspects, I think is maybe what's giving me that sort of vibe, and it's very compelling. MycoMan writes, nature versus nurture. What makes a species adapt to its home? Some say it's the perseverance of the species itself, or its time letting the creatures adapt slowly, but what if there was such a thing as an animal that was neither of those things? A phenomenon amongst animals that continuously popped up everywhere with little to no explanation. Today we'll be talking about boar and boar hounds. Boar are a hyper-adaptive species that were first made and primarily reside in Chrysalis. They live amongst the Invash highlands, getting together well with the Eladrin, who live a similar but unique fate to the boar. Boarhounds are a designative name given to boar who have been domesticated over time. In short, all boarhounds are boar, not all boar are boarhounds. According to myth, the boar were first a species of giant, birthed straight from the mountains and into the highlands. Legend says that they were a quadrupedal giant species with furry bodies, large claws. Some even said if one of their kind bit you, you'd turn into one of them. The myth says that when Laust shed blood for the bloodgrass, some of it spilled onto some of the boar's ancestors. It granted them the ability of hyperadaptability with the drawback of shrinking and weakening the species. Breaking this down, it appears that whatever ancestors boar had, they gave birth to lichens, mayhaps. I'm unsure of the integrity of the myth, and I haven't gotten the chance to meet Laust yet. Not that I'm sure he'd tell me how true the tale is. From what I hear, Laust is a fan of leaving things up to mystery. That's why most statues made of him in temples don't have any facial features on them. No matter the origin of these interesting creatures, I find them rather adorable. Maybe sometime I'll add in another sub-entry to this one, going into detail on any boar subspecies I find. I remember MycoMan talking about this in the server. I like these little creatures. This idea of some kind of creature with like synchronicity across the different realms, which is the boar. That's fun. For day 163, the prompt was, what's an exotic, expensive food in the rest of the world, but a household meal in a specific place? And this prompt came from Nukes in the Discord. Fredwin the Great writes Sarada. Sarada is a dish local to the hydrid lakes of Grelot, made of freshwater clams and goods traded from Havenhold, specifically wheat and tomato, on rare occasions bones of pigs or cows. The local form of the dish is made by steaming the clams to open them up and removing the meat within. This meat is then stewed with a tomato sauce mixed with various herbs and spices and then mixed with wheat-based noodles. This dish is a simple pleasure that comes rather cheap for the tide takers of the Hydra Lakes and is usually made on a bi-weekly basis. The abroad version of sarada is much more lavish, being composed of saltwater clams or mussels, a much more rich tomato broth mixed with bouillons and beef broth, topped with greens like parsley and lemon zest, then served with a fancy splash of olive oil. The noodles used here are usually of finer quality as well, still made of wheat, but sometimes of rice as well. This dish costs around 10 times as much as the local form of the dish. On day 165, the prompt was, how have the events slash factors of your world shaped the weapons and armor its occupants use? And this prompt was brought to you by Predwin the Great from the Discord and on TikTok. Predwin the Great writes, over adaptive war fronts. War is, like all other things, subject to evolution. Weapons become stronger, and thus so does the armor they are meant to penetrate. Turmoil is beset by entities beyond the mortal realm, entities that are sometimes beyond the very concept of death. Armor is built to withstand blows from meta combatants that can level buildings. Weapons are constructed to destroy the mortal forms of Murricane and Arc cultists whose bodies are beyond life. Weapons and armor alike are built in an ever escalating environment to cancel each other out and grow ever more dangerous to nullify the danger of one another. The average soldier, the conscript, the prisoner, the martyr, these men and women are normal, in a place where normal is a city obliterating daemon the size of a bunker is a facet of everyday life. A place where normal is a tank the size of a city teleporting over the horizon and slowly driving your way as thousands of projectiles come to and from its carapace. A place where normal is an ineffective form of war. The only way these people can be useful in the slightest is in the dozens, sometimes hundreds, thrown head first time and time again against the daemon or that tank, until the weight of their corpses crush it or there are no more bodies left to send. War is a cycle. War is a perfect theater, and you will be a center stage, mortal. Nugget writes for day 165, The Arcane Weapons of the Witchfinder Army. This is another entry in The Time Traveler and the Immortal. After the War of the Gods, their souls were shattered across the world as their magic bled out in strange ways. While many seek to destroy all remnants of the gods left on Earth, some of the loose magic has been used in weaponry. Ironically, the people most likely to use such arcane weapons are the Witchfinders, as you can't kill a god with mortal weapons. Of course, you wouldn't be able to kill an actual god with these weapons either, but they wouldn't know that. Short and sweet, but interesting and intrigues me for what I don't know here. On day 166, the prompt was, what's a piece of survival advice which is common in your world, i.e., if you see a bear, play dead? Nugget writes, hide from the wind, run from the water. An entry in Petrichor. The windows shook as the wind roared just outside the orphanage in Lower Petrichor. An 8-year-old Edward was sitting against a wall with his brother, Thaddeus, as he practiced reading by candlelight. The hurricane outside shut down the power hours ago now. As fire and sea rise in... Thaddeus leaned over to look at where Edward got stuck. Prestigious, he finished. Merci. Don't mention it. Edward was about to return to the book when his attention was interrupted by a loud crash in the distance. It was an ugly sound like metal on metal and concrete giving out. What the? Thaddeus exclaimed, looking in vain out the boarded window as if to try and see what caused the sound. Should we be here? Edward said in a quiet concern. What do you mean? Thaddeus said, lingering his gaze at the window before turning back to Edward. Well, aren't people supposed to leave during hurricanes? Weren't people supposed to help us get somewhere safer? Unless they forgot. Are we going to be okay? Edward, Thaddeus, there you are. One of the caregivers came in a panic. We need to get to the roof. The roof? Thaddeus wondered. The wind out there is bending lampposts, and you want us on the roof? It just has to be this way, I'm afraid. We just got word the levees gave out. There's 15 feet of water coming for us. The roof might not be ideal, but it's the best we have to avoid getting flooded. Now put on your coats and get upstairs quickly. Edward and Thaddeus scrambled to their feet to get properly dressed and braced for going outside in the weather. Edward began to notice water crawling across the floorboards, wetting his feet. Thaddeus let out a sudden gasp, once again looking at the window. The water was already high, pressing against it, pouring into the room through the seams. Thaddeus? Thaddeus barely responded, still looking in horror at the window as tears welled in his eyes. We shouldn't be here. Very harrowing. This is a different entry from you, Nugget. I like it. It's a little spooky and ominous, but from a childlike perspective. Very different. Well, that's a wrap for Shoutout Saturday number 13. I'm sorry it's a little late. Camping schedule and all that really does drive my timelines out a bit because I am not a professional content creator, and so things are not done very far before, if at all, they are posted. So thank you for everyone who is patient with this kind of thing. Thanks to all the submitters as always. And if you want to see your own work read here, then just come into the Adobe Discord. The link is in the description. Submit your work for that build together in the build together forum and just give the tag Shoutout Saturday and it'll be included here. Thanks to everyone for building together. Have a wonderful Saturday or whatever day it is that you're watching this video. Bye.